So you guys are always interested in my book collections because you know I forever be talking about books. You guys want to know what I'm reading. You want to know what books I collect. You want to know what books are especially important to me. I just moved into this place and I have an office of my own now. So the first thing that I did was I went and I got 3 Billy bookcases from IKEA on Facebook Marketplace, and I filled them up with all of the books that I brought that I've been carrying with me from country to country. Look, when I move house, 99.9% of the things that I bring with me are books. So the way that my bookcases are set up is this is my office, this is my private space. I got a door that closes. I got the whole deal going on in here. So in here is books I don't share. Out there in the living room is books I do share. So today I'm just gonna take you shelf by shelf and show you how I organize my bookcases and what books are most important to me. Okay, this is shelf 1, and here's what we got. On the left side, we have all of my Watterson books. We have 3 essential Calvin and Hobbes. I did used to have the authoritative and the indispensable Calvin and Hobbes, and I had to get rid of some and rebuy them, so I must have just made a mistake at some point. I have 10th Anniversary, which I talked about in another video, and then I have the Sunday Pages and the Lazy Sunday, which are different, equally important. You need both. I have all of these, which are the little collections. Something Under the Bed is Drooling. I've got Weirdos from Another Planet, The Revenge of the Baby set. These are all great. You need them all. My friend Maggie just got me this one, The Mysteries, the newest Watterson work, like the only work that he's done since Calvin and Hobbes, aside from, I think, an appearance in Pearls Before Swine and one more thing, just little comics here and there, but that's his first actual work. It's a collaboration with someone else. Very exciting. Then I've got Dagger Dagger. I've got Good Boy 1 and 2. I've got The Dark by John Klassen and Lemony Snicket, a dream collaboration. Lemony Snicket is one of my favorite authors. John Klassen, he's the one who did The Bear in the Hat. Brilliant illustrator. Then I have Bill Pete autobiography. You know I come from Story. You know I come from Disney. This is indispensable one. I have these 2, which are amazing. This is by my friend Linnea from school. Linnea was in my class at CalArts, so I got these by supporting their Kickstarter. Linnea's an incredible artist. If you've seen their frog illustrations, I'll put it on the screen. Linnea's really good. You should be following Linnea. These are works by contemporaries, friends, and friends of friends. So I have X-Mag 1, 2, and 3. I think these are published by Silver Sprocket, which was my local comic shop in San Francisco. I've got Loki Atelli's illustration book. This one's great. I've got this one, Canopy. This is Piao, Painfully Embarrassing Otaku Weekend. This one's hilarious. They were a publishing company, but I think disbanded recently. Then I have a Nate Stevenson book. I've got Kisses for Jet, a coming of gender story. Prince and the Dressmaker, another coming of gender story, queer-coded in my opinion. And then we have Woman World by Amanda Dwally. I have a few other Amanda Dwallys. I'm still hoping to get Cyclopedia, the Cyclops one, which has an eye on the cover, super cool. I've got Your Name, all of Last Man, all of Nagata Kabi's. I've got 1 and 2, Until I Love Myself by Papi Pesuyama, which was recommended to me by you guys. Thank you very much. That was a brilliant recommendation. I did love it. It stays on my bookshelf now. I've got 3 of the Haikyuu ones, one of them being the one where Bokuto confesses love to Akashi in his head. You know the one. If you read Haikyuu, you know the one. That's brilliant. Then I've got Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. Not the biggest fan of that one, but that's because I favor graphic novels that are in an older age range than that. I did hear really good things about it, which is why I picked it up. It's beautiful, it's cute, it's just not for me. And then over here, I've got zines. This one's by M. Carroll, like one of my favorite artists of all time. A horror comics artist, just absolutely insane. M. Carroll is immensely inspirational for me, has been for years. I think since I was probably 12 or 13, I've loved their work. Just, if you don't know M. Carroll, I highly suggest you go to their website. It's an interactive horror website, so freaking cool. If I ever need inspiration, I just jump onto that site, really. Then I have these 2 brilliantly illustrated kids books. I've got a couple kids books just because they look really cool. Look at that. Look at that little man. Oh my god. Shut up. That's such good art. Shut the fuck up. And then Stone Soup, an old favorite of mine from when I was a little kid. Illustrations are great in that too. So the top shelf of my bookshelf, as you can see, these are all like absolutely necessary art books for me. My desk is here and like right here off screen, and my chair is right here off screen. So the idea is if I need inspiration, I turn the desk around and this is the first shelf. I can just pull any art off of here to inspire myself. That's shelf 1. Moving on to shelf 2, right below. This is similarly inspiration, but literarily. So these are all of my Norton collections. This is all of Shakespeare. This is literature by women. I have anthology in poetry, the Norton of short fiction. I've got the Norton anthology of English literature, and somewhere the Norton anthology of African American literature. That might be out front to loan out. That one's so good, so good. I've got Tonari no Totoro and Mononoke Hime, the original storyboards by Miyazaki. I have them heavily bookmarked, I'll show you. So this page, for example, I bookmarked because Satsuki goes out and it's windy and she's picking up a bunch of sticks and the sticks go blowing in the wind. And this is just such effective paneling and boarding. Insane. Insane. So that's those two. If I were to ever get another one, I would get Spirited Away just because that was the first one I saw as an older kid, the first new Miyazaki I'd ever had the pleasure of encountering. I thought it was very weird at the time, but since I've probably seen it like 100 times. Then I have the best perspective book of all time, Perspective Volume 1 by Dong-ho Kim. Just the only one that I've ever actually learned perspective from. I've read every other perspective book. I got ADHD brain. I can't deal with those books that are super clinical. I've tried them all, like the math ones. There's like a cute little character who teaches it to you. It's a comic book style. I really recommend this if you're struggling with perspective. Then over here I have The Far Side, The Prehistory of the Far Side, another great comic. Gary Larson is the artist, another great comic by a really brilliant cartoonist. This is Illustrated Encyclopedia of Healing Remedies and Herbal Remedies. These are my reference books. So this is literary and reference. So these are the books that I pull out when I have something that I want to do and I don't know how to do it. I come to these. So this is Rice's Language of Buildings. Looks like this. And then we have Making Comics by Scott McCloud, one of the first comics that I read that changed everything for me. I must have been 14 when I found it in my high school library, and I would read it like once a week. Great book, really good. Kind of old classical style. A lot of the information is outdated now, but most of it is not. Most of it is still essential if you want to get into comics and cartooning. I mean, not essential, but extremely helpful. And then the last one I have on here is 19th Century Fashion in Detail. This was sent to me by my mother-in-law because she found out that I was really into historical fashion, and it was a great purchase. Brilliant for me. I really like that book. These are my reference books. So on the top shelf, all of my art books. In the middle shelf, all of my reference books. Again, these are on the left side closest to my desk for easy access. I just turn the chair around and grab one. Again, you don't want to like stop your flow when you're working. So how you set up your bookcases is really important too, if you're using them as reference while you're working. Bottom shelf, I don't really need to like go over it in too much detail. This is all of my sketchbooks. I mean, not all of them. This is probably sketchbooks between 2018 to 2023, except for this one, which is my journal from when I was 6 years old. My travel journal, Gabby's Vacation Diary. You can see in it, I drew my favorite outfits, and I also would draw everything I ate because I loved food. I was reading Harry Potter. I must have been 6. Yeah, I was 6 or 7. But, you know, with my family history, there was a lot of desire for escapism into fantasy realms. But these are just sketchbooks and also all of the books that I've written in. So diaries, journals, old novels. This one's a novel that I wrote that I didn't finish. So that's this shelf. That's down at the bottom because I don't need it a lot. So on the first shelf, but at the bottom. Bookshelf number 2, to me, the most exciting of the bookshelves. These are the works that I consider masterworks. These I think are perfect. So starting with One Piece, of course. Oda is like, come on. If you haven't read One Piece and you're an artist, I open up to any random page and take a look. It's just incomparable. For me, The style, also the perspective, the backgrounds. I know he's got assistants, so it's not all him, but Oda in general is a fucking genius. Now, keep in mind, man does not know how to draw a fucking woman. You know that, I know that, Oda knows that. If you want variation in women and stuff like that, you don't go to Oda, you go to Ryoko Koi. This is Dungeon Meshi. Dungeon Meshi has the most varied body types and also facial features that I've seen in a manga ever, period, point blank. Dungeon Meshi, storytelling, fire. Art, fire. Characterization, fire. The personalities of each character, fire. This... Trigger Studios is turning it into an anime, which I'm really excited about because I want more people to know about the comic. My partner actually was the one who showed me Dungeon Meshi. But very briefly, I will just show you some of the characters. This is the Dungeon Meshi Bible, I think. There's a theory online that Ryoko Koi is definitely a lesbian because she draws women with such care, the same way that there's a theory online that Haruichi Furudate, the creator of Haikyuu, must be a woman because she writes her boys with such care and love, and they're obviously super gay. Same thing in this one. There are super gay characters. There's also definitely autistic and definitely asexual characters. So something for everybody. Dungeon Meshi's great. Last on this shelf, we have the greatest of all time, A Song of Ice and Fire. Don't talk to me about Game of Thrones. I've never seen Game of Thrones. I have no interest in Game of Thrones. A Song of Ice and Fire is a completely different work, the same way that Archie Comics and Riverdale are completely different works. The same way that, like, Across the Universe and the entire Beatles discography, I'm not a huge Beatles fan, but you know, those are not the same thing. The same way Game of Thrones and Ice and Fire are not the same thing. So if you are not a Game of Thrones fan, if you were let down by the show, read the fucking books. Read the books. They're on my perfection bookshelf. This bookshelf is for, I don't know how to do something, so I will go turn around and find out how a genius did it. That's what this bookshelf is for. I've been reading A Song of Ice and Fire nonstop since 2015. By that, I mean the audiobooks stay on my phone and I put my headphones in and I just be listening to them. By this point, I've memorized so much of A Song of Ice and Fire. I am going to get a poster for this room that is a giant map of Westeros, but I talk about it so much that my partner is now a fan. So my partner actually wants to put our map of Westeros in the bedroom so that when we're talking about A Song of Ice and Fire before bed, we can reference the map. I'm not lying. I'm not making that shit up. Someday I'll make a video entirely on these books. But this is on bookshelf number 2, the middle bookshelf, right at the top, for a reason. Also, I just found out today, a vast majority of George R.R. Martin's fans are women. And I think that says something. I think that really says something. Yeah, you have to read it. Or come back in like a couple weeks when I make my whole video about how good the books are. We'll stop talking about it now because that could take up the whole video. We'll move on to bookshelf number 2. This shelf, very special to me. This is novels and nonfiction books that have changed my life significantly in some way. These are books that I come back to and read again and again and again. You'll see there's a lot of poetry on here. We got Walt Whitman, we got Robert Frost, we got William Butler Yeats. Here's Frost. Yeats. We got Edgar Allan Poe's complete works. We have this one, Queer, a collection of LGBT writing from ancient times and yesterday. We have Before We Were Trans, Women Who Run with the Wolves. I mean, Great Gatsby, that's kind of a cop-out because, you know, it's not a book that changed my life. It's just the first book that I read that had a sincerely unreliable narrator, and I love an unreliable narrator, so that's a good short read in order to see an effectively done story of assholes. Great Gatsby is a story of assholes in a really cool way. We got Virginia Woolf, we got Braiding Sweetgrass, we got this one, The Best American Non-Required Reading, edited by Daniel Handler. You saw me on that shelf tell you about how much I love Lemony Snicket. Lemony Snicket is Daniel Handler's pseudonym. So this is just a collection of like teenagers' works. And it's really, really good. Teenagers are brilliant. I love kids. I like this book a lot. Some of the works in there are just absolutely insanely good. I hope all those kids become writers because their stuff is amazing. Equal parts inspiration for the art inside, and also just because reading stuff by kids is sometimes just so refreshing and so cool. And then, what else do I have on here? I got Paradise Lost. I got quite a few Joseph Campbell works. I do have my Joseph Campbell tattoo right here. The Hero with 1,000 Faces. This book has now been pointed out to me by many, many scholars to be a sexist book because it does not include women, but I am trans, and I read this book when I was 23, and as a trans masc person, I did not realize that this book does not include women in a fair way, because I am not a woman. So I did not see a problem with it. I still think there's so much valuable information in there. Again, I can't speak to the point of view or perspective of women because I am not one. So all of the stuff that he talks about like go out and conquer and bring back the boon, I have the desire to do those things too. So that book personally affected me in a really positive way. But for that point, I have the heroine's journey, because we gotta read, compare and contrast. We gotta do our collective analysis. We have to look critically at our favorite works as well. So this one is really good. Maureen Murdoch. The very intro, she talks about an interview that she had with Joseph Campbell where she asks about women, and Joseph Campbell says something about like, women are already perfect, they don't gotta do shit, which is an extremely unsatisfying answer. So Maureen Murdoch wrote this book. Great book. Trigger warning, talks a lot about dads and like father wounds. Still good, really good. We've got Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. This book is insane. Read this book. Up here, I think I also probably have Know My Name by Chanel Miller, which I've not read yet because it's a book talking about, if you don't know Chanel Miller, she was, trigger warning, raped by a guy called Bruce, some fucking kid, while she was at school, and she delivered a very emotionally affecting statement while she was in court addressing him, and then went on to become a writer, wrote the novel Know My Name, because she was previously known as Jane Doe. She now has a successful illustration career. She's had like art galleries in San Francisco, and she's a writer. And she's brilliant. But I haven't read the book because, another trigger warning, I've also been sexually assaulted a number of times, so I'm not trying to weep my eyes out. I'm waiting until I'm in a really good place to read that book, even though my friend Elisa, shout out to Elisa, bought me that book literally like 5 years ago. I still haven't read it. I will someday though. We've got Some Girls Walk Into the Country They Are From. Highly recommend because, in this world that we live in, with the displacement of colonization and all of those things, I feel like that's a sentiment that all of us can relate to, or at least most of us. A lot of us non-white people can relate to that sentiment, especially here in America or in other countries where we've been displaced from our ancestral homes, or mixed, like if we're mixed race. You get what I mean. We got Leaves of Grass by Whitman. We've got T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. I'm all about those queer poets. I'm all about that queer poetry. Yeats, one of my, my favorite poet, an Irish poet from turn of the century, during all the shit that was going on with England and Ireland. An Irish nationalist, fought with the pen, not with the sword. Nothing wrong with fighting with the sword. Fighting with the sword is very important when there's a genocide against your people. Am I right? Am I right? I'm right. Yeats, great poet. A lot of his poems are about freedom and love. Paradise Lost. We got The Songs of Trees. I love trees. We got Whitman again. Joseph Campbell again. We've got Arrival by Ted Chiang. I got that because I love the movie. This other wrist is just waiting for my Arrival tattoo. I watched that film in 2016 twice. Cried both times, back to back. And then bought the book. Book was good. Not as good as the film, but makes sense because Arrival, the movie, is based off of one of Ted Chiang's short stories, which is called The Story of Your Life. He just didn't expand it to the level as the film, but all of the other short stories that he wrote in that book are incredible, brilliant, amazing. We've got Stephen King on writing. Holy shit, a masterwork, a genius. Stephen King, I can make a whole nother video on Stephen King. Let me know if you want to see it. Stephen King, another problematic author. I put him in the same camp as Murakami and Gabriel Garcia Marquez, which is men born around the 40s, active writers for most of their lives, incredibly misogynist towards women, very, very disgusting attitudes towards women, write very often about women as objects, sometimes even teenage girls as objects, disgusting. But Stephen King, still a genius, unfortunately, an absolute fucking genius. And I think the least offensive of those three. By far the least offensive. My partner and I talk about how important it is for representation to have, if you're going to have all white men as authors, to have somebody from a different class, because so many of the authors, think of Philip Pullman, who wrote The Amber Spyglass in the, His Dark Materials trilogy, and think of Joseph Campbell, A lot of the white male writers come from very high academia, Oxford, Yale, Harvard, those kinds of places. So Stephen King coming from a literal trailer park, like impoverished, and writing his way into being like 100 millionaire or whatever, I think that's a valuable perspective, and a lot of his writing holds that perspective of very poor people coming together as a community to defeat some kind of supernatural evil. Very cool. My favorites by him are The Breathing Method and The Man in the Black Suit. Those are just perfect. Also, Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption, which The Shawshank Redemption is based off of. I could talk King all day. I'm a huge fan of King. If you've not read On Writing, it will inspire you to write. Also, a masterpiece in sneaky narrative. Ooh, that shit. Ooh, so good. Ooh, I love that book. I've read it probably 6 times. Then we got Joseph Campbell Hero with 1,000 Faces, book 2. It's the same book. I really should put this one out into the front room to loan out, but I've taken notes in both of them, so I'm not loaning either of them out. They're both very important to me. Steering the Craft by Ursula K. Le Guin, another trans guy. She hasn't come out as trans, but she talks about being a man very, very often. We've got Poe, again, I'm a fan of Poe. Then we've got Miss to Live By, Joseph Campbell, surprise. All of Poe, the complete Poe collection, good shit. Reread The Raven. The Raven is insanely good. There's also, you can listen to online, Christopher Walken does a reading of The Raven that I think is the best, categorically the best recorded version of The Raven. How does it start? On a midnight dark and dreary, something like that. Knock, knock, knocking at my chamber door. That shit is insanely good. Go listen to Christopher Walken read it. I know it's not Halloween anymore, but it's a good wintertime tale. So just go listen. Look, it's been 10 minutes. This is my longest shelf. Robert Frost, another gay who wrote poetry. I'm a fan. I love gay people writing poetry. Ocean Vuong, also gay. Then we got Virginia Woolf. To be honest with you, I've not read it yet, but I know that it will belong on the shelf as soon as I read it. Sorry. Look, I told you I'm a trans man. I know I have to read Virginia Woolf. I know I have to read all of my feminist literature. You'll see I read a lot of gay men. That's just because I'm also a gay man. I'm sorry. But it's on my shelf. I will read it. I promise. And I do have, look, I do, like, literally me making apologies. I do have my whole shelf of literature by women, and I have read the Norton Anthology of Literature by Women. I think there's a Woolf work in there that I did really like. I can't remember what it is, though. Sorry. But, yeah, it's on here, because I know it'll be good. I know it'll be good. Speaking of feminist literature, Robin Wall Kimmerer, Braiding Sweetgrass. I posted about this on my Instagram when I was reading it. This is one of those books where I had to read a chapter in the morning with a cup of tea, cry, and then start my morning. Like, I had to block out an hour to read the chapter and then cry before I could move on with my day. Great book. Learned a lot about life and a lot about parenting from this book. And also a lot about, like, indigenous people and agriculture. Great book. Brilliant book. Beautiful book. And now we're back to the beginning. We got The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, another one I've not read yet. Heard so many good things. Read a few Holmes likes. I've read a few Moriarty things, and I liked all of those, so I'm excited to read that one. Then we got Hindu myths. I did take a specialization in Hindu mythology when I was in university, when I was like 17, 18. Was a really big fan of it. I lied to get into the class, said that I was part Indian because it was a white woman teaching the class, and it was the only way she'd let me in. It worked. I really liked Hindu mythology, so that's why that's on the shelf. Now we're back to the beginning. We got Great Gatsby, Unreliable Narrator, A Book of Assholes, brilliant. Then we have Women Who Run with the Wolves, another brilliant book I recommend if you're having trouble in your life and you're a woman or like aligned with womanhood. Anybody, fucking anybody, I'll say it, anybody. If you're having trouble with your life and you want to reclaim some of your like independent energy and creativity and stuff like that, great book for that. Then we have 2 gay books, Before We Were Trans and Queer, a collection of LGBTQ writing from ancient times to yesterday. Beautiful. I love gay people. I love trans people. I love being a part of the gay and trans community. It's the best part of my entire life. I recommend those books. I like queer shit. What can I say? I'm a queer. And the last shelf on this bookshelf, this is my language learning bookshelf. Very exciting for me. One of my favorite shelves in the whole thing. It's down here in the middle because I fucking love learning languages. The first language I ever learned on my own was Spanish that I taught to myself when I was 6. Now I don't know it anymore. I'm not good at it anymore. My first word that I can remember teaching myself in Spanish is amarillo. And I would be watching telenovelas in the morning before school at like 6, 7 a.m. I wasn't allowed to watch TV at that time, so I did have to sneak it and like turn the subtitles on. But I was really excited about learning Spanish. I did have a grandmother who spoke Spanish. She's from Puerto Rico, but she helped me out a little bit. On the left side, we have all of my Japanese books, Japanese proverbs, and I'm a huge fan of bilingual readers. I try and read it as much as I can in the target language and then go to the bilingual side, like the English side, when I just can't figure something out. I also have all of my dictionaries here. I have some really cool dictionaries that I'm very excited about. For example, this one, which is a Japanese to Japanese only dictionary, but it's for kids, which means it's heavily illustrated. I'll show you. Look at this. It's just really cute. Ottoman, easy chair, deck chair. It's just cute and beautiful. I don't use this one much because I love it so much. There's also a book here called Japanese Identity, written by, well, I don't know. But this is a bilingual reader by a Japanese man who is explaining what it's like to be Japanese, I guess, is the best way I can explain it, with a lot of different, like, cultural examples and very significant cultural, like, landmarks and ideas. Very cool book. I really like this book. In the middle we have French. I started learning French when I moved to France when I was 19, so that's 12 years ago now. I'm still not very good at it, but I'm at the point where all I need is a dictionary, and I'm reading novels. So, like, thrillers, you know, not like, I don't read nonfiction in French or anything like that, but I can finish a good mystery novel in French. Not bad. I'm currently reading Shadow of the Wind in French, L'Ombre du Vent. It's a fiction book that is really, really good. It's about books. If you read it in English, it's brilliant in English. It takes place in Spain. I recommend reading books that you have already read in English that you really like in your target language, because it is fun that way. And if it's fun, you'll do it more. On the right side is Spanish. Spanish, in my opinion, if you speak English, pretty easy as a target language. Very rewarding, extremely rewarding, especially because I grew up in California, so there was plenty of people to practice with. I am also at the point where I can read books in Spanish. Easier ones are better, but it's weird because I can't speak any Spanish. I can speak French, can't speak a damned word of Spanish. Like, the vocabulary doesn't come to mind because I don't know a lot of it at all. But I can read it because it's really easy to figure out, having lived in California my whole life. Yeah, this is my language learning bookshelf. I used to have a couple, like Dutch. I had Arabic. I had Italian, but I wasn't really learning those languages actively. I've had Chinese, not actively learning those languages, so I ended up dedicating my bookshelf just to Japanese, French, and Spanish. And occasionally I'll pick up a dictionary in a different language and futz around with it, learn a word or two. I know, like, a few things in many, many different languages. I tried Korean for a while. That was really fun. Beautiful alphabet, like gorgeous alphabet. My ideal languages that I'd love to learn: Mandarin, Japanese fluently, Korean, French, Spanish, Italian, and Arabic. If I could get those, I'd be a happy man forever. That's it. I could rely on those. Also, like, Russian or German would be really fun. But I always add to it. Look, this is one of my passions as well. So there you go. That's my language learning bookshelf. On this side, we'll start from the bottom because this is my least interesting shelf, I think. I think you'll disagree with me, though, because this is my numbered and ordered sketchbooks, starting with 1, moving all the way to 6. From the time that I was trying to get into CalArts and break into the animation industry, I was making about a sketchbook a month and really stuck to it. Now, I was broke and poor, so I had to duct tape all of my sketchbooks together, but it was really fun. It ended up being really fun because I could number them with the duct tape. And it gives them all a really cohesive look. And example of what my work looked like at the time. That's Eleanor from my comic Eleanor and Devin. This is Devin from Eleanor and Devin. Surprise, I've been working on the same characters my whole life. Hang on, this was cool. This is super cool, what the hell? Here's a Frankenstein from that time. I think these end up going into my first and second year of CalArts. That is something that I really enjoy about about my artistic process back then, is I used the same sketchbook and numbered them, which I would do again just because it gives a very cohesive look to your sketchbook, like a beginning, middle, and end. Cool. This is files and papers. This is my current little sketchbooks and some books that I'm writing in. And then this is like a sketchbook from when I was like fucking 11 or whatever, because I have a couple sketchbooks from when I was like 11. This is an iPad full of old art, but the iPads always bend, so I stopped using them. Fuck iPads. I now use a Surface Pro 7 or something like that. Way better. This box, it's stamps and letter writing materials and various office and art supplies. So we can move up. This shelf is for books that I either liked and would read again, but didn't love enough to put on my life-changing bookshelf, but also wouldn't loan out for whatever reason, or books that I haven't read yet that are just good old for fun fiction books. Because like I said, the way that the office is set up is the desk is right over there, the chair is right over there. So this shelf is the furthest, meaning I would use these books the least. But in this middle shelf, it's like, I'm bored. I kind of want to pick something up. I'm like needing inspiration, but it's not dire, it's not an emergency, and I'm kind of open to anything. These are those books. So I have the Most Daring Book for Girls, and then the Double Daring Book for Girls, Most Dangerous Book for Boys, and the Double Dangerous Book for Boys. My brother had this one when we were kids, and of course I took it and snuck it away and read it myself because I was trans and I really, really wanted to read the Most Dangerous Book for Boys. Double Daring Book for Girls sucks, is not really as fun at all. It talks about boys and in it, where the Dangerous Book for Boys talks about like how to climb a fence and how to tie a knot and how to make a compass and sail a boat using a compass. Like, what the fuck? There's a huge disparity. I have all 4 of them in the series because I'd like to make a video on the differences between them. I also have another Joseph Campbell here. I've got Marcus Aurelius's writings. Oh, sorry, that's Moonwalking with Einstein. That's a different one. That's a book on memory, which is exciting to me, but not exciting enough to have read it so far. Tokyo Love Story, which is cute. The Subtle Uses of the Knife by David Mamet, who is an editor, I believe, a film editor. This is, oh no, excuse me, I'm thinking of Making Movies by Sydney something, I think. Anyways, this is a dramatist, The 3 Subtle Uses of the Knife. I remember that I read it once and thought it was good, but not enough to put with like Stephen King's On Writing. So that's why it's over here. Piranesi by Susanna Clark. Great book about trauma, but not in the way that you think. It's a fiction book, and it's really beautiful. Recommended to me by another friend who's like dealt with trauma in their life. I've loaned it out to a few people who all liked it as well. So, Piranesi, pick it up. To You We Shall Return, about the Lakota people and the cultural ideas of the Lakota people. Lessons about our planet from the Lakota. That's what I mean to say. Good book. Lovely book. I recommend it. Then we have Arabian Nights and Days. Read it in college, liked it, have been meaning to reread it. And then we have The Secret. I mean, obligatory if you're of my generation. Read this book just because it helps you to change your mindset, or at least it helped me to change my mindset. I know there's a lot of criticisms about it and about like the privilege of being able to think in this way, blah, 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 but it did help me a lot when I was in my early 20s. It helped me a lot. So, you know, that's that. Fairy and Folk Tales of Ireland. My partner's Irish, so that's one that I was really excited about, by William Butler Yeats. And we've got Philip K. Dick, who I'm familiar with, which is why I picked this up from a little free library. It says, What If Our World Is Their Heaven? The Final Conversations of Philip K. Dick. No clue what this will be. That's why it's over here. We'll see. Then we've got another Irish mythology by Yeats. He's an authority on Irish mythology the same way that Joseph Campbell is an authority on mythology in general. So Yeats is a brilliant poet on his own, But also, if you're interested in Irish mythology or Irish culture, reading books edited by Yeats or written by Yeats that are about those things will teach you a lot. Then we've got this one, which I just picked up. I wanted to read it in Japanese, but my Japanese is not nearly good enough. It's Out by Natsuo Kurino. It's a thriller that I think she is like a killer of men, like kills her boyfriends and shit like that. I'm really excited to read this fucking book. I'll come back and let you know how it is, but it just looks fun. I'm just excited to read it. I think she won a couple prizes for it too. It's been on my list for a long time, but like I said, I gave up on reading it in Japanese. It's just hard and I want to have fun. I'm just gonna breeze through these because I've not read them, but I'm very interested in reading them, which is why they're on my shelf. We have Reading Lolita in Tehran, Recovering the Lost History of Our Ancestors, India Calling, The Hotel on Place Vendôme, The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. I did read the Kazuo Ishiguro book, Clara and the Sun. That one was really beautiful. It's about like a robot and AI and stuff like that and how they have feelings. It's told from the perspective of the robot. Very cool. I recommend. I think it was a bestseller recently, like in the last 2 years. And then we have The Beautiful Things That Heaven Bears and Passage. This one looks really cool. Passage by Carrie Lazar-White. I hope I said that right. Just a beautiful looking book. I'm excited to read this one. Top shelf, nothing too crazy. This is the books that I take with me places. So these are the books that I'm currently writing in. This is a grimoire, as in witchcraft and shit like that. You can see this is kind of an emptier shelf. We got a singing bowl, incense burner, and this for crushing herbs. So this is my witchy shelf. This is my witchcraft shelf. Here's my grimoire. This is my journal. This is my current sketchbook. Over here, we have The Artist's Way, which is a book that was recommended to me by my very good friend Greg to like help you unlock your creative, like what's locked up in your creative brain. That helps you unlock it, which is cool. I like it a lot. And then we've got just another sketchbook, my YouTube planning book, and then a bullet journal that I abandoned this year because it was too triggering to look at, and this, which is just like my can't be bothered to write nicely in a journal scribble book. Does that make sense? I have ADHD, so to stay organized, I need a lot of fucking books. That might seem really counterintuitive to you, but it's how my brain works, and I think a lot of people with ADHD would benefit from this method. I'll make another video on it sometime if you're interested, but having a lot of books that are for one specific purpose makes it easier for me to organize my thoughts, because my brain is already running on 10 different tracks at once. So if I just allow my brain to do that by having 10 different books, every time we have packed to go someplace and I pack a suitcase, my partner has been confused because I will pack like 10 different journals and notebooks, but it's how my brain works. And accommodations like that are like really necessary for people with ADHD. You know, ADHD is considered a disability. That's crazy to me because I'm not medicated for it. So like I don't see it as a disability. It's just how my brain works. But sometimes we do really need accommodations for things, and it's okay to give those to ourselves. So though it might seem unorganized to other people, if it helps you to think and plan and execute and organize yourself, just fucking do it. Just do it. You're allowed to have 20 notebooks. You're allowed to write in one of them once every 3 months when that idea comes back to you. That's okay. You can do that. Just giving you a little bit of permission there. Now, I was gonna take you out to the main room and show you the books that I do share with people, the books that I keep in case anybody wants to come over and borrow them from me, but I think we're out of time and I'm just gonna have to do that in a different video because shit, we're probably at like 40 minutes already. I don't know how much raw footage that I filmed. I hope you learned some stuff about me today. I am really of the opinion that you can learn a lot from a person by just looking at their bookshelf, and you can definitely tell if you're going to be friends with somebody just by taking a peek at their bookshelf when you go over to their house. I recommend doing that. If they've got like weird, like World War II, Civil War shit, you're probably not going to be friends with that person unless you're into that too. You know what I mean? If they've got fantasy craft and no D&D books, that says something about them. If their bookshelf is covered in Magic the Gathering cards or like My Little Pony shit, that says something about the person. Maybe you'll have a lot in common with them, you know? Take a look at your friends' bookshelves, especially if you're going to be dating someone. take a look at their bookshelf. I hope at the very least, if you're not a reader, that this video showed you at least one book that you might be interested in picking up and trying out. If you need recommendations, you know I keep that thing on me. And by that thing, I mean a vast knowledge of books that I've read and loved. So let me know what you want to know about, and I'll recommend you a book if I've got one for you. Recommend me books if you saw my shelf and said you're gonna love this other thing. The same way that you guys did with Until I Love Myself by Poppy Pesuyama, which ended up being such a hit for me. So I'm open. If you're open, I'm open to give you what I got. I hope that helped. I hope that answered your questions. And I hope that the people who've been asking me for a bookshelf tour for like 10 years, hey, I hope that was everything you ever dreamed it would be. Thanks for watching. I'll let you know about the rest of my collection another time. And we'll also talk about Game of Thrones, because that's all I'm thinking about lately. And Breaking Bad. Tell me what you're hyperfixating on lately. Tell me what your favorite book is. I'll see you next time. Bye.